Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. And it is officially, I guess, coaching open season. Or coaches open season. The first round of the playoffs is over. So now teams can officially go in and interview coaches or pretend to interview them, as we talked about last week. They made a big stink about the Cowboys not firing McCarthy early enough, so they're 4 days behind or some BS. They were like, oh my gosh, end of the world. Vrabel's already off the table. The Steelers, they need to do something with Tomlin, which we'll get to in a second. But I wanted to start the show off because we talked about groomers last week. Now we have Dion talking to the Cowboys, which to me, I would have said that's a horrible mistake. But I think
that's
Dion...
almost like collusion, wouldn't it?
What, if he goes to the Cowboys?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it already check the boxes?
Well, it checks the boxes, but if they're already like going to be in negotiations for, I would assume like he's not going there without being the ability to like move up and draft his son.
Well, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, they didn't fire McCarthy. Like, they didn't wait 4 days. I bet they reached out to him before. That might not have been like an official thing. It might have been like, remember back in, what was it, 2013, whenever I was telling everyone that, hey, Harbaugh's interested in Michigan job, and he was still coaching the 49ers. And it was like, we got to wait for it to be official before he can like really express interest. And then when they fired him, it was like, yeah, you idiots. Like, why would you let him go? And then the 49ers went into a tailspin until they finally got back. But now it's the same thing. Like, hey, Dion might be interested. All right, we better make a move. Because I don't think he needs his son. I honestly think the Cowboys having him draft his son is a bad move. But again, if you're going to waste time moving up, why not pick the coach he's comfortable with? Like, I don't think he's going to be doing a lot of the X and O's. I think he's more of the hype man, which in the NFL, you can be the strategist and like Belichick, like tell people to like film practices and stuff, and then go ahead and let other guys handle the X's and O's. But I don't know if that's going to work out for him, because like he's not going to get Hunter and his son, or will they? And then even if they did, like, it wasn't like they were winning the college football playoff. So what's the ceiling? Right? I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted Hunter and brought Dion in. But then he's not going to play both ways. So I don't know what they would do. I feel like a father-son coaching quarterback deal is a bad move, and I hope they don't do it. I like Dion with the Cowboys, though, but I don't know.
But that would be an ideal thing because they could bring him in and wouldn't feel the need to be pressured to start him right away because you still have Dak. And he can sit underneath, he can sit behind him, grow into the game. And Jerry would appreciate because drafting Dion's son, jersey sales would be through the roof, so he'd just make money off jersey sales, not have to pay him as much. I mean, it would almost be the way Bronny got drafted, and they like made more money off of his jersey sales than what they were paying him. I mean, that's a win for the organization.
Yeah, I just don't know. You just don't trade up or do whatever they need to do to get him. Is he going to go that high, though? That's what I don't know. Like, maybe they won't have to trade up for him. And then in that case, then, yeah, draft him and take all the upside. Because I wasn't high on Jaden Daniels too much either. Didn't win at LSU, and now he has a playoff win. Like, yeah, he threw up a bunch of stats. A lot of guys, it's hard to tell. Like, does Brian Kelly never really had a quarterback put up numbers. right? He was known for like linebackers with fake girlfriends. He wasn't known for quarterback production like Ryan Day, where it's just known for like churning out these quarterbacks that sometimes don't pan out. And so you're like, system guy. But for like Daniels being a hit, now with Sanders, if he gets in, and like they didn't have good protection for him. So maybe that would be the key. But then again, I watch the Vikings, they didn't have protection for Sam Darnold, and he looked awful. And that's another scenario. Like they drafted JJ, Darnold was a surprise, so they got to let him sit for a year. There's so much pressure for them to start JJ next year now after the way Darnold looked in the playoffs. Yeah, he won you 14 games, but he looked awful. That game wasn't competitive. I was completely wrong. I thought the Vikings were going to roll. But it wasn't even just the pressure. Like his passes were off. The one to Hawkinson down the sideline, like it was thrown to the inside hash where he could have maybe ran up the sideline, and it was just a routine out pattern that I saw. And as soon as I saw that, whatever quarter that was, second quarter, I thought this game's over. Then they went for it on fourth down, and then the Rams scored right before half, and it was over. And then it was like, how bad is this going to get? So if Dak comes in and they draft Sanders, and then he starts to have a bad game or two, and yeah, he does get injured a lot, so maybe it'd make the transition a little bit easier. He can get Wally pipped.
Well, and I feel like that almost helps the scenario, because then you're following that mindset of having a decent backup in the wings, so that when Dak gets hurt, it's not like, oh well, we brought my son in to start him right away. Like he was there to learn. Injuries happen. Now he's being forced in. Even if he struggles early on, there's still that mindset of, well, we're easing him in. We're not trying to do too much. Like when Dak comes back, he'll just go back to the bench. Like there's no unnecessary pressure.
And that's true. I just don't know how the father-son dynamic is going to work. Right.
Well, it worked great with Bill and his son.
What the hell are you talking about?
Bill Belichick, when he had his son as his defensive coordinator, he brought him in. Now he's following him with him to North Carolina.
Did you see the picture of Bill and his girlfriend going out to meet recruits? His son wasn't the quarterback, though. Did he play for him? I don't think he played for him, did he?
No.
That's why I was confused. At first, then I was thinking, like...
Well, no, but I mean, they brought him in to be his defensive coordinator. Might as well.
Yeah, he's grooming him, basically, just to take over, right?
Uh-huh.
So when he coaches at UNC and they let him take over, is it like a 1 year? Remember, like, Michigan was set to do that for Sherrod Moore. They were like, you don't have a contract yet, son. And then when he beat Ohio State, they're like, all right, now you're good now.
You don't have he just still hasn't signed his contract yet.
Yeah, that was like, what, September, October? They wait, I guess it wasn't the Ohio State game. They wait till he, like, beat USC? And they're like, nah, you're good now. Texas game, we were worried about that. That was a blowout, but when you beat USC with only running the ball, awesome. That's what we want to see in the future.
Now you're on board. We don't want you throwing the ball too many times.
Yeah, under 100, we're undefeated, buddy. Just don't throw it to get 100 yards. That's all you need. But yeah, we'll see that job. The main one that I wanted to bring up, the Steelers are in a similar situation. They have Russell Wilson that came out and said, like, yeah, we're a talented team. We have a championship caliber team. Then why weren't you prepared for the game? You waited until you got in a big hole before the offense opened up. And then by that time, it was too late. And then what? The final throw, when they had a legit chance to come back, he threw in the triple coverage to someone other than Pickens, like the shortest 5'9" receiver the Steelers have. It just had me shaking my head. There, and then the announcers were like, he made the right read. No, he didn't. Since when is throwing a jump ball to the 5'9" guy the right read? It was like 4th and whatever. I thought it was 4th and short. And he took a shot. And the Ravens basically tricked him into throwing that ball. And then it kind of like embarrassing. Anytime someone tells me like, Russ could do it, I'm just going to send him that highlight where it's just a triple coverage. It's like, what are you doing? You have one guy deep and they had the safety over the top. And then the other guy, the spy, like the man under, the other safety, like coming back. So 3 guys were there to break that up. Triple coverage, buddy. If he would have checked it down, they might have got the first down and been alive. Unless it was 4th and goal I don't think it was because they would have had more guys running routes. They surely didn't draw it up that way, I don't think. Although maybe I'm wrong. They talked about, Arthur Smith getting interviews. They talked about what a great time he had last time with the Falcons. Although don't get me started on the Falcons. They're interviewing my man Wink Martindale for defensive coordinator. Now,
I was surprised you said he was only there for 1 year. I thought he was there for a couple of years.
And what, Michigan?
Yeah.
No, we've only had him. This is Sherrone Moore's hire. We had McDonald for a year. He went to the NFL, and then he's Seattle's head coach now. Then we had Minter, who was there, I think, for 2 years, because people talk about how bad Wink was, and they talked about how they missed Minter. Minter blitzed the hell out of TCU, which was uncharacteristic for him, and that's why we got blown out. So I was kind of on the fence. I liked McDonald more, if I'm being honest. But then he redeemed himself by winning the national championship on defense, beating Bama in overtime, right? And then just destroying Washington. So I have to give Minter some props, but he followed Harbaugh to the NFL. And so I didn't know which way Michigan was going to go. Sherrone Moore said he wanted someone that ran a defense before, and it worked out. I mean, not maybe at the beginning of the year, but I like I said, I don't think it was Wink's fault. It seemed like he was blitzing a lot and really trying to gamble because he knew the offense was bad. At the end of the year, he kind of just seemed like, all right, I give up. We're just going to play. We're just going to play base defense, give them mixed looks, don't really put a lot of pressure on, and see if we can just like reduce scoring. And then in college, of course, that works. Like Ohio State couldn't do anything. And that was the game. Like they couldn't do anything. They even gave it, Michigan kicked the field goal instead of going for like, they weren't aggressive at all trying to score the touchdown to go ahead. Thinking they didn't think Ohio State could score the game tying touchdown. That's just like embarrassing for Ryan Day. And of course they didn't. And that pretty much is going to win Ohio State the national championship, which we'll talk about the second half of the show. But with Bama, he did mix in pressures for Milroe. And everyone saw like, man, if he gets pressured, not a good look. So when I hear people asking me, hey, what should the Steelers do? Should they draft Milroe? You wanted him at Michigan. I said, yeah, at Michigan wasn't running a passing offense with Sherrone Moore. So Milroe there, he could have just ran, and he had 2 stud running backs in Mullings and Donovan Edwards. That would have been awesome this year. I still think if Milroe's at Michigan, they make the playoffs. They already beat Ohio State without him. It would have been a bloodbath if we had him against Ohio State, and Ohio State couldn't move the ball on us. Right? Michigan was driving the ball. They just couldn't punch it in the end zone, throwing interceptions down there, doing whatever. Like if Milroe was able to scramble around, I don't even want to imagine what that score would have been. Hell, Michigan might have been national champs. If they could beat Ohio State without Milroe, and Ohio State looks like they're going to be the national champs, that wasn't a game at Michigan in like the snow or something. That was in Ohio Stadium. So Milroe would have been the game breaker for that type of offense. He didn't hit me with accuracy, right? So like to throw him into the Steelers can't run the ball. They still don't have a good running offense. And I had a couple questions come in, and so I'll throw them your way. First one, do you think they should keep Najee Harris? I think he has a contract coming up. I don't know if it's this year or next year. That was the first question I got. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like yes. Like I don't. That's a hard one because in the NFL, running backs are a dime a dozen, and I feel like you could potentially go into the draft and potentially select another running back that could produce for you. But I mean, I think with what he does, I would almost want to give him another contract just to maintain semi consistency because I don't think it's the backfield is the issue.
I don't want them to waste some money. And I don't think the backfield's the issue either. But it's also not over the top. That guy's great. Like, man, I'm glad we have Najee Harris. Right? Watching the Ravens with Derrick Henry and then the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, it's like that's the type of running back you pay for. Guys that are just running you over. Derrick Henry ran through the Steelers like, oh my gosh, it was just embarrassing. Like you couldn't watch that game and think, wow, Steelers defense awesome. They showed a clip of Derrick Henry running for like 9 yards on first down, and then TJ Watt just looked like he was going to cry. And I thought, yeah, that's game. That was during the comeback. I think the Steelers scored a touchdown, and the very next play was a 9-yard run by Derrick Henry. And I thought, there's no chance they're not getting the ball back. Like, you're not gonna, you can't let him run for 9 yards on first down, and then be like hold him for the next 2, right? But come on, you know a run's coming. They're running the clock out. So that's the kind of thing that I don't see from Harris. Like I don't think you can give him the ball with the game on the line. I just don't think he'll get it done. And there are some sleepers like the Lions getting Gibbs. I think they drafted him in the first round though. And then some other guys. It's like, all right, let's see what happens. Get a first, not even a first round running back. Just get another guy and you can put production in there. I mean, heck, the Chargers were getting production with like random backup running backs, but that's because Harbaugh's offense was built for running backs. So it kind of depends on what the scheme. And then, of course, the next question that I kept getting was, I guess, going to talk about Russell Wilson. Do you think he's going to be back next year?
I feel like if he wants to be back, yeah, he'll be there.
So to play devil's advocate, would you think it'd be better to go like Sam Darnold route and just give Justin Fields a year?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but there was something within the coaching staff and the organization that they felt like Fields couldn't get it done. Otherwise, I think they're with Fields being 26, 27.
Yeah.
If they felt like he had the ability to be that guy, why would you hold off and knowing that you can let Wilson go at the end of the year? Like there was something that was there that they were like, he needs more time, or we need to develop him more,
or he's never going to be it.
Yeah, or he's never going to be it. We're just like he fits a backup role, but we're not going to push the issue. Like, you know, there was a reason that he wasn't starting this year, or that Russell Wilson beat him out. So I think there has to be, for knocking a lot of stuff within the Steelers organization, I think it has to be taken into consideration. Like, there's a reason he wasn't starting.
And that's where, yeah. I mean, if you had to keep, like, let's say Milroe fell to the second or third round, I think the Steelers should draft him. Or heck, maybe they'll draft another quarterback. Which of the two would you keep as your starter, Fields or Russell, for next year, if you were the GM?
Yeah. I mean, if I was the GM, I would say likely go Fields. And for me personally, it's more Fields is still he's still under contract, I believe, for at least two more years.
Is that what it is? I didn't know if it was only one more year.
I couldn't remember.
I don't know.
But you figure at least with how many more realistic seasons do you have with Wilson? You know, I mean, like, I don't foresee him playing till he's mid-40s.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he retired. I know he talked about coming back.
I feel like there's interest that he would play for Pittsburgh again if they were willing to put the contract on the table for him. So, I mean, I think that is a potential option. But I think there's the bigger issue is you need to find out, is Fields your quarterback? Like, you're not going to win in the NFL unless you have productive quarterback play.
That's where I think Russell had his chance this year, just like Sam Darnold did. I think you have to look at it and say, is he going to be able to win you a playoff game? No. I don't think he can. I mean, maybe if they had a good matchup. But, like, in the AFC, you're going to most likely play either Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, maybe Burrow. Like, I don't know, what was the other 4 seed? Stroud. So, like, are you better than those guys? No. You're not. So, I would say maybe force him to retire. I don't think another team would pick him up. I think if the Steelers don't ask him, I mean, maybe like the Jets would get greedy if they push Rodgers out and they try for Russell Wilson thinking that they were close. I mean, honestly, I think the same thing would happen as the Steelers this year. If the Jets had Russell Wilson instead of Aaron Rodgers, I think they'd probably make the playoffs. I mean, the Jets had a lot of weapons. It's kind of ridiculous how Aaron Rodgers ruined them. But I don't think the Jets would have went far. I think the same scenario would have happened. So that's why I'd be leaning Fields. And I think it just depends on the quarterback. I'm not really high on any quarterbacks this draft. That doesn't mean that the quarterbacks aren't going to hit. Right? I wasn't high on Daniels. I was wrong there. Stroud, like any other Ohio State quarterback, probably a bust until you prove it. We'll see if he is a bust or not, because I didn't see anything spectacular that he did. In fact, Herbert gave that game away.
Yeah.
And that was a horrible performance by Herbert. So much that I don't want to see him in any commercials. Don't mention him as a top quarterback. Who throws more interceptions in one playoff game than they did the entire regular season? That has to be the only guy, right? I think it was 4-3, but insane. And the one, was a tip, but the first one was the one where he overthrew it right to the cornerback for the pick 6. That turned the entire game. And then of course Nico Collins took over and had a couple things, but like you got to expect Nico Collins was like the best receiver all year. He's going to score a touchdown. So all the Chargers had to do was don't turn the ball over. And he turned it over 4 times. And that was the game. That was the entire game. Harbaugh, that's what I said before. Like, for Harbaugh going to the AFC, I think personally it was a horrible idea. He could have had the Washington job. And
but the Washington job wasn't exactly.
It wasn't great either, but at least you would have got to pick your quarterback. And you don't have to play those AFC quarterbacks. They got to play Baker. If Baker didn't fumble, the Bucs would have won that game. He fumbled it, and such a horrible fumble too. And that swung the game. And then they almost still blew it with that awful kick off the field goal post. Sent it to overtime. So just easier to win in the NFC. It's not a joke. I think that one I was leaning Baker, but I wasn't sold. I did like what I saw out of Washington. I'm very impressed by my man Mikey Sanders still. Give him a shout out because he was like, what, a nickel at Michigan? And they have him playing straight corner out there. In the NFL, dude, one-on-one with some of these guys. Insane. And that one play was like a wheel route. He read it and covered it. That was a touchdown. He had no business breaking that one up because like he was in position, but that wasn't his job to run with the guy. The safety over the top was supposed to come over, and he wouldn't have got there in time. But Mikey just kept running with him and broke it up. Like he knew they were going to throw it there. And he went with him, probably knowing that if he would have dropped to the guy running the crossing route or the corner, whatever it was, that, yeah, he would have been able to break that pass up. But don't get burnt by the guy going deep or it's a touchdown. If the other guy catches it, they could probably tackle him at the 5 or 10 yard line. Not a big deal. Instead, he saves a touchdown. Didn't matter in the end. But very impressed by him and his rookie year that he's able to make reads on the fly still. Because I saw him do that at Michigan, and everyone said about how he was undersized. And you get a couple of rookies like that come in and turn the locker room around, and we'll see now if Washington can make a run. They go to what, Lions?
But I mean, even looking at Washington, like they won their playoff game, and like to go into to rewind to the start of the year, which was the more attractive position, Pittsburgh or Washington? Like if you had to take over the franchise,
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, like if you were in that position of making a choice of which team do you want to be the head coach, CEO of?
If it was me personally, I would have took any NFC job. I said that at the beginning of the year. Because to me, if you look at the bracket, you got to beat those three guys I said. Mahomes, Lamar, and Josh Allen. In the NFC, you have to beat Hurts. Like, one other standout quarterback, like Lions maybe? Like, what other guy are you afraid of? Baker? No offense to him, but he's not known for winning games. Jordan Love? No. He hasn't impressed me. They 100% fell off at the end of the year. I blamed it on the Packers defense. Wrong. The defense played great. The offense shit the bed. Now, whether his arm was hurt or whatever, if his arm's hurt that bad, then don't play. I mean, Packers had so many injuries that game, though. Unbelievable. Did you see that? They had like 5 injuries during the game.
No.
Christian Watson was out. Then Dobbs took a shot, I think, to the head. He was out. And then, who was the other receiver that went out? So 2 receivers went out. I think 2 linemen went out. And then a couple defenders. Like, they ended the game down like 5 or 6 guys. It was ridiculous. And then Love kept holding his hand, which everyone knew was hurt going into the game. But, I mean, you can't lose all your offensive weapons during the game. I kind of felt bad. It was almost like a fluke. Not that I didn't think they were going to win anyway. I knew the Eagles were going to kill them. What do you think of Saquon sliding down? You think Vegas got him?
I think it's just a guy that wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, I mean, I know the conspiracy theorist in you saying got him, but I mean, he got what he needed, and slide, move on, paying homage to the football gods.
That honestly, that's what I would have did is slid.
Because there's not what's to say that he doesn't get hawked down, fumbles. Like, that's what Miami thought when they didn't take a knee and ended up blown at the Georgia Tech last year.
I was just thinking, dude, you had how many injuries in that game? You want to put your defense back out there when you know the Packers are going to try? Why would you risk at least one more hit? Unnecessary, unless you're running backups out there. But the Packers had already lost how many guys during that game that you don't risk it. Even if they put Malik Willis and he's running wild, he's not going to go out there and just like lollygag around, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was smart, and he should have said like, "Nah, saving my defense. I didn't want them. A lot of injuries in that game. I was not risking it. Let's go. Let's win the Super Bowl." And I still think Lions and Eagles are going to be my two teams for the NFC. I think that's who I picked last week. I thought the Vikings would make it to the next round, but nah. I thought we would have got a Vikings-Eagles type deal. But now we're getting, Washington Lions, and then whoever, what's the other game? Oh, the Rams. Rams-Eagles. Rams surprised me, but they're not the Eagles. So I'm going.
They got that high-powered defense.
Yeah, but the Eagles are good. I'm picking Eagles, Lions, even though I don't trust Goff. I didn't even name him in my quarterback rundown. But
he's just going to run. Goff's just going to hand the ball off.
If Washington beats the Lions, Detroit might burn down. Like, that would be the most Detroit thing. People say Minnesota's cursed. The Lions right now are the favorites, and they should go to the Super Bowl. They only have to win 2 more games. Hell, it would benefit them if they played the Rams. Even though it would be a Stafford homecoming. Like, if the Rams somehow made it, maybe the Lions could, break the curse by beating Stafford in the NFC Championship game. And they could all do us a favor, beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. That would be awesome. That was my only downside with the AFC side, where the Bills and Ravens both win. Now Josh Allen and Lamar are going to eliminate each other. So you were going to trust Stroud to beat Mahomes? Ugh. I don't feel good. I've seen him play in the snow, dude. At Michigan, right? Wasn't good. Was not good. And then he blamed it on this. Like, Ohio State was like, we don't play in the snow. What are you talking about? So them playing in Kansas City when it's supposed to be, cold again? I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be cold this weekend. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll get a good day. That's what he needs. I think Stroud needs perfect weather to have a chance against the Chiefs. And I think we're going to get, what'd I say? Lions, Eagles, that's 2 favorites. I think we're going to get, honestly, I hate to say it, I think we're going to get Chiefs, Ravens on the AFC side. What are your picks for the 2 sides?
I'd like to see. Once again, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get myself hurt. But I'd love to see the Bills pull it off in the AFC. And inevitably, I feel like the Ravens are just so ridiculously stacked with what they're doing that I feel like that's going to be who comes out of the AFC.
You think they're going to beat the Chiefs?
I do think so.
I was thinking that too in the Steelers game. I was thinking we might get Ravens Lions, dude, or Eagles Ravens.
Yeah, and that was kind of the direction that I was thinking.
That's close proximity.
But I say that knowing damn well that the game's going to have to be played up in Buffalo and neutralize all of the athleticism that Josh Allen has. There'll be like an ice storm and a blizzard, and it won't really matter, and they'll end up losing.
That's because Derrick Henry, dude, he'll be running wild up there. That's what they need. They don't have him. He's the game breaker.
Yeah.
Allen, I saw him run around. He took one big hit, and I thought, oh, my gosh, he's going to be hurt the first round. We might need him to beat Mahomes. What is he doing out there? Trying to run. Taking shots for no reason. Let's see. Anything else stand out to you in the NFL you want to talk about?
Well, it's kind of circling back a little bit to the Steelers, but there's some speculation as far as some of the quarterback stuff with like drafting Milroe and just going back into that rabbit hole of being competitive. And I just don't think that picking up someone like Milroe is going to be that significant of a move for them, being that with the way that Tomlin seems to like his offense to run, that they're not going to do anything out of the box. Like there's no changes that are gonna happen. The best case scenario is that they load on the offensive line and just put their eggs in that basket and hope that between the draft picks from last year with a year of maturity are better prepared to take over starting roles this year, and potentially looking at the draft to pick up some additional linemen and actually develop it. I think that's the best case scenario. There's a lot of people. It's surprising that even the mainstream media now is really getting active on the Tomlin on the hot seat.
Oh, that blew up.
And that surprised me because that's like the big argument is that he's never had a losing season and all of his consecutive playoff wins, and I mean it's just the stat lines. It plays to your advantage, but I mean I feel like for as much as you say that, there was a standard of winning in the playoffs. We haven't won the playoffs since like 2016. So like, it's no longer good enough to just, hey, we're here. We want to actually do something to get us over the top. And it feels like I've said for the last couple of years, watching their games is so flat and so like it feels so overly scripted that it's like, in certain parts of the game, like when a casual fan can just go, oh, they're going to throw a moon ball here, and there it goes. I know. And the irony is, I'm watching, like something came up on my X feed today about Roethlisberger and how like Tomlin he's struggling without an elite quarterback. I'm not saying Roethlisberger was an elite, but watching Roethlisberger highlights from like early in his career, you can't tell me that it doesn't resemble the way Jameis Winston was playing in Cleveland, just running around, randomly throwing the ball deep. Like
that's where you're going with this. You want to bring Jameis in?
He can't be worse. He can't do any worse. At least we will be entertained.
He can't wear a fade like Russell.
He can't, but he can conduct a hell of a interview.
Dude, if they bring Jameis, you might as well just bring back AB and have a full on CT ESPN going on.
Well, I mean, there's levels of mobility that I feel like he can check that box. What does Pittsburgh want to do? Have the quarterback run around and throw a deep ball. You can say throw the ball to George Pickens, and he will throw the ball to George Pickens. That's what they want. I mean, did AB play his best? When Roethlisberger bounced off of 9 defenders and then threw the ball down the sideline. Like, it wasn't like he was doing anything special. He ran fades down the sideline, and Ben threw it up to him.
Hey, he also caught passes from Tom Brady, and then took his shirt off and did a dance in the end zone.
And burned bit his feet off with the Raiders.
Hey, I just want to be entertained, dude. Did you see?
If that's all you want, then you want to be on board with Jameis. But I say that jokingly, while at the same time saying I want to see more competitiveness from the team. It's like they were winning, but it was like I felt like they were winning on the heels of their defense. And then the defense just kind of ran out of gas at the tail end of the year when they started facing those better teams on that weird, which, I'll even throw this out there too. Like, that was such a cluster to end the year. You're playing all these top playoff teams, and it's like Monday, Thursday, Christmas, Tuesday, like just ping-ponging around with playing a murderer's row schedule. I didn't foresee them to be – I didn't think they were going to walk out clean at that tail end of the year, but I also didn't expect them to just skid the way they did, because they went from being one of the top 4s and potentially like having a first-round bye to barely making the playoffs.
Did you see your boy Deontay Johnson got cut?
Bring him back.
He was with the Texans, dude. They didn't even want him in the playoffs. They needed him. I think Tank Dell's still out. They said it just didn't work out. Yeah, because he didn't want to be there. He wasn't good. That's what they need. The guys need to actually like work out and like do some moves or something. I don't know. They have to actually want to put in the work to be successful. For like whatever Juju did, like to win that Chiefs Super Bowl, he had to at least be there. He wasn't getting cut like Johnson. But I looked up. I was trying to find the mock quarterback ranking, and honestly, they're not even high on these guys. And I saw one mock where Cam Ward could fall far enough for the Steelers to take him, and I think that would be a steal because he can pass. And I think if you have a year with Russ and Cam Ward underneath them, that could be the future, dude. He's like 25 already, though, I think, right?
Yeah.
So he's ready to go. He just needs to learn how to pass. I mean, like, look, Jaden Daniels, same thing. Bounced around, put in one great Heisman year or whatever. Cam Ward was very similar. It wasn't like Jaden Daniels won anything in college. Why not have Cam Ward go there? He's been successful everywhere he's been. Some of the other ones, like they still have Quinn Ewers on here, which is rumored to go back to college, and Carson Beck, who transferred to Miami, I think, already. So yeah. I think he's out. Milroe declared. Dylan Gabriel would be a horrible pick for the Steelers. That's just what they need, a quarterback that just gets killed back there. Like, they don't run the kind of offense that he would be. Like, that would be an Arizona-type pick, which I don't even think that would work out. Maybe Jackson Dart. They could go with Kyle McCord.
But any of those guys I feel like are late round flyers. And I still feel like when you draft a quarterback, if you really want him to be successful, what's the formula? What do you need? You need solid offensive line, you need stud running back, and you need defense. You know, Bill Cowher had the formula, Parcells had the formula. Like it's not a shocker of what you got to do. When you go in, you know, you look at Peyton Manning's first season, and by all intents and purposes, with his productive career, his rookie year, didn't he set like a record for most interceptions? Like, didn't he come out the gate just throwing a shit pile of picks?
Maybe, I don't remember now.
But I remember like he had some struggles early on, but part of it was like, are all of those foundational pieces around you? And that's with a guy that is going to go first ballot Hall of Fame.
So here's my picks for you, dude. I think Steelers should get Cam Ward in the first round, then let Najee Harris walk and get Scatterbo. And then boom. New offense.
That would definitely be a very Pittsburgh-esque draft them and then play him in the slot, like Julian Edelman.
And Ollie Gordon's fallen too, dude. He was awesome at Oklahoma State. They might be able to get him late, get a couple new running back options out there. Because remember when they got Willie Parker, wasn't that he a late round flyer too?
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see. And if Cam Ward doesn't work out, take a late flyer on one of the other guys. But at that point, you might as well stick with Fields for another year and see, like, next year, if Ewers comes out, Beck, you could take one of the guys that kind of has the measurables. Although Beck, with the way his arm got hurt, I mean, who knows how he's going to recover from that. That's like a pitching elbow type injury. And then what's the other one? Oh, Manning. I don't know how many years he'll be back at Texas or whatever.
Like that may be one that you just stockpile for the future. Just load offensive line. Like Cam Hayward isn't going to be around many more seasons. You're going to need a replacement for him up front. You know, stockpile offense and defensive line. Solidify that. and then start fresh with a new coach.
They could go get my boy Donovan Edwards late. He's great at catching. Then Michigan never threw him the ball for whatever reason. No wonder they had to get rid of the offensive coordinator. But you get him the ball in space, dude, and he's a home run hitter. He's also showed up in big games. So, like in the playoffs against the Ravens, they might have had more offense with a guy that shows up that you can probably get in the sixth round, seventh round. Why not? I like a lot of the running backs on the list, actually. I think that would be the route that I would go, if I'm being honest.
The younger running backs just seem to not overthink plays and carries and things like that. So it's just we're just run full speed and just go. And it's designed with less thinking, where I feel like that's where you can bring in a running back and make it work, but it's much harder because of all the checks for the quarterbacks.
Well, my last question that came in, and we already talked about it a little bit. Would you trade Tomlin?
Yes.
For who? McCarthy?
I don't know. Who do you want to trade him for? Yes, I will. I mean, it's just, at this point, I just feel like a change of scenery is needed. I like the comparison of Tony Dungy with the Bucks.
Dude, let's say, hold on, I got a scenario for you. What if we got rid of Tomlin and brought in Gruden to go with Cam Ward and Scatterbo and Donovan Edwards in the 7th round?
I don't know that we need all of those picks.
I think you would love it, dude. That's a run-first offense. Production. Everything else is defense. No receivers to mess around, do anything.
Gruden's game matches exactly what Pittsburgh does. Downhill run, in your face, smash mouth football.
Yeah, that's what Scatterbo's for, bro.
I'm on board with it.
Get him, and then his third down backs, Donovan Edwards. He can hit some home runs when you're tired, and then the diva receivers, it's like...
No, we've run this thing. All these Michigan guys do is just get hurt with the outlier of Tom Brady.
Whoa, bro.
All they do is get hurt.
You don't remember Brandon Graham?
You don't remember you have heart conditions, and you got Peoples-Jones that has a bad hamstring every week.
Peoples-Jones, he's out. Nico Collins, bro.
He was banged up for part of the year on injured reserve.
Everyone knows that youth Texans was beat up, though.
Everyone who went to Michigan was banged up.
Not Rashawn Gary. He played his heart out. I felt bad for him after that Packers loss. He was one of the only ones still standing. I thought, salute you, bro. He was really close to causing a fumble.
Hutchinson's legs snapped in half. Do they just not give milk out in Michigan?
That's what happens. They went pro, and they weren't getting the high-quality milk they're used to with Harbaugh. With Harbaugh as coach. Right? Blake Corum's arm snapped, too. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're onto something. Because I don't know. How many running backs do you know that broke their arm in half?
Not many.
Not many. So you might be onto something there.
I can't think of any.
You just don't want Big Game Dawn winning the Super Bowl MVP.
Well, no, because we drafted a Michigan receiver, and how many games did he play? None, because he was injured. He did just as good as I did. We watched all the games from home.
What if he comes back next year and he's like Nico Collins, though? He's like one of the top in the league.
Well, then I'll eat my words. But you know what he'll probably do? The same thing I did in the NFL this year. Nothing.
He was a little bit shorter. He'd almost have to be a Randall L.
All hype. All hype.
Have to be a Randall L, dude. I don't know if he can do that. Let's see what else. Oh, Sarkisian. There's rumors that he's the backup for Dion at Dallas. Do you think that would be a good move for him?
I don't know. I mean, I think I feel like at Texas, he's winning enough that I don't know that he would be on the hot seat right now.
But that game was awful.
That game was awful, but I still feel like if you're getting your money's worth from the college game, Where's the motivation to want to jump into the NFL and go through that headache?
That's why if I were him, I would stay in college. I don't know if he has what it takes to be in the NFL, because you have to have some type of scheme, right? And that Texas game showed me that he's not the right mindset for the NFL. They were first and goal at the 1 yard line. He abandoned the run so fast. Like, the odds of them stopping 4 power runs in the middle is astronomically low. Penn State did the same BS against Ohio State earlier in the year, where, remember, they kept like motioning in their linemen and then like trying to run like a stretch play. Just run right up the middle. Heck, like the Packers, what they were doing was they had their tight end that played high school quarterback. He was taking the snap and doing the tush push or whatever the hell they call it. I don't know what they call it in Philly, right? So that way, if he gets banged up or whatever, it's a tight end. It's not Jordan Love. So you can't tell me that Texas couldn't do that with Manning. Although I think Manning had a concussion, right?
What would tip that off? Him just continuously running to the wrong sideline?
Him fumbling the ball immediately, and then look at Dave so confused. His arm going like this, and they're like, look at his arm. He doesn't have the ball. I'm like, yeah, he's concussed, dude. He might be seizing out there. And they were more concerned about it could be a fumble. I thought, get my man some help out there. So having him down, I think, really hurt. But the play calling, why run the toss on the second? Like, you weren't even ready for that. Like, you didn't have any other option. Like, run a speed option or something if you're going to do that. Do something to get the defense in. They had abandoned it, and then they didn't have a heavy set. Like, it didn't make any sense to run that toss. You only run a toss if you're in a heavy set and they don't have a cornerback out there to cut it off. Wrong. That's like, Texas had to see the alignment. Sarkisian should have audibled that play. And then the next play, whatever, then the 4th down play that he fumbled and they'd return for a touchdown that ended the game. If Ewers just falls down, does anything else on that 4th down play, heck, even if they would have just kicked the field goal, they would have had a chance to get the ball back. But once they were down 2 touchdowns, that was it. And I feel like 100% that was coaching. And now, let's just say it, like, the Big Ten's going to win back-to-back national championships for the first time in, forever?
Well, you don't know that. It could be an ACC champion again.
It's not going to be Notre Dame.
You don't know
Notre
that.
Dame is limping in, banged up. This playoff is showing you that it doesn't matter what the national thing is. So I've heard from a source that the higher ups in the college football playoffs are very worried about this expanded playoff. This is my personal thought now, not what they told me. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a change by next year. Like, they're that spooked by the poor ratings. Because, dude, there's no reason the ratings should have been worse than last year. The games were alone on Thursday and Friday. NFL has already, conditioned people to know that there's a Thursday game. Maybe the Friday game, a little bit lower. But you have 3 of your 5 biggest brands playing, Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, and you're not polling numbers. It makes no sense that, but the drop-off has to be casual fans, because you can't convince me or anyone that's a football fan to say, oh, you got to watch the game. Texas and Ohio State are the best 2 teams in the country. It's are they? No conference champs are left. Hell, Texas and Penn State both played in the conference championship game. Notre Dame isn't in a conference, but dude, they lost to a MAC team. I don't think there's ever been a national champion that lost to a MAC team ever in college football history.
Wow, why are you so salty against the MAC?
I'm just putting out facts here. Maybe back in like the day when Yale or someone was playing against them and like before conferences really stood out. But I'm saying Ohio State has won nothing. They're not conference champs. They weren't even division champs. I think this is going to be a different rant. I think getting rid of divisions really hurt the credibility of this playoff format, because you could have said, oh, well, even if you did the split divisions like I had talked to you about plenty of times, like the pods or whatever, if you would have said, okay, well, in the national championship is Ohio State, they were the Central Division winner in the Big Ten, which they would have been. I don't know, maybe Indiana would have been. So hell, maybe Ohio State wouldn't have won shit anyway, right? So you would have had Penn State in. Their coaching mistakes, horrible. I don't even think it was on them. Like I think they should have passed that ball at the end of the game. If I'm being honest, I don't think that it was 100% on them. But some of the other coaching decisions that they made, like putting their guys on an island, he falls down wide open for a touchdown. Like, what are you doing? Just play bend but don't break. Notre Dame has no offense. That's why I think they're going to get killed. They have too many guys injured. You don't just get miraculously healed up. Ohio State's going to put a pounding on them. Remember whenever they crushed Wisconsin, it was like 59-0, or when Georgia crushed TCU? I honestly think that's the kind of championship game we're getting. If it's close, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm ready for Ohio State. I mean, let's say when Texas came back in that game, Ryan Day puckered up, dude. He turned into the Ryan Day that we all know and love, where I thought, oh my God, Ohio State's going to blow this game. But they got lucky enough where I think he learned from that mistake. There's been so many playoff games where I think he goes all out. He knows Notre Dame's wounded, and every time he's played like a wounded Michigan State or somebody, he's pounded them. Except for Michigan this year for whatever reason. But again, I think he learned his lesson. Like, whoa, we came out flat against Michigan and we lost. We came out flat against Texas, and luckily they fumbled it right to us and gave us a touchdown instead of tying the game up. Because in overtime, Texas would have won the game. I'm convinced of that. Jeremiah Smith had, 3 yards? Like, I don't even know what Ohio State's game plan was, but it was nothing. Texas blew it with the screen play, same with James Franklin. Why are you not set up for a screen at the end of the half? Just do a bend but don't break. What defense are you running where you have no guys back there? What are you doing? You just got back in the game. Take it to halftime. Let them kick a field goal. Their field goal kicker isn't good. What are you doing? They haven't had good special teams at Ohio State for years. Remember their kicker blew the Georgia game? They blew the Michigan game. I haven't remembered an Ohio State guy making a gigantic pressure-filled kick ever. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Texas? Same with like James Franklin. I think this format, I've said it, is tailor-made for James Franklin. He's like ready to have a lifetime contract. Penn State, the way things are going to be making the playoffs a lot. And if you follow the money, dude, the only thing that makes sense is the Big Ten, since NIL is now legal, the Big Ten has the richest alumni base in the entire country. The northern schools do. The southern schools, you can pretend like, oh, southern schools are so hot, X, Y, Z, this. Texas in there, but from Texas and the SEC, everything else, all the way to USC, Oregon, they're going to be throwing more money around. That's the difference you see. I saw ESPN put out this thing where they were saying that the SEC is stretched too thin now. Now, how can the Big Ten doesn't the Big Ten have more teams, or are they equal now? The Big Ten is stretched from New Jersey to LA. It makes no sense, that conference. If a conference is stretched too thin, it's the Big Ten, not the SEC. The SEC is stretched because now you just can't pay players under the table. I mean,
Well,
you
no.
can, but
I mean, they're saying that they're spread thin, but part of it is because it's harder to justify some of the teams that they overly value and rank.
you can't tell me that the teams that have been complaining about bagmen, Michigan, Notre Dame, for what, the past 10, 15 years, Penn State, that magically NIL becomes legal, Matt. And those teams can pay players, and holy shit, now they actually are unbeatable. Like, it's not a coincidence. You can't tell me Michigan just wins the national championship, unblemished, by the way. Not some fake championship where you don't even win your division. That was an undefeated 15-0. The champion this year, will Notre Dame even have 15 wins? Maybe. What's their record? Are they going to be 15-1 or 14-1? Ohio State's like 13-2, 11-2. Like, they're not going to have 15 wins, I don't think. Although with these new playoff formats, I'm not 100% sure. But all I'm saying is, if you're looking at it, the SEC should be very, very worried because they've been complaining about it. I think they know that when these teams are throwing money around, Notre Dame would get 15 wins. They're 14-1. Ohio State's 13-2. It's a Monday game, Martin Luther King Day, which I'm surprised they scheduled it for that. I wish it was that last year. I would have 100% been able to go, even though it was in Houston. Where is it this year? Atlanta? Oh, my gosh. That's even better for me. I would never go anywhere near this. Ohio State's obviously predicted to win. Riley Leonard barely passes. That's Ohio State's kryptonite, though. Running the ball. I thought Love was hurt, though. He had that one big touchdown run against Penn State. I think. So, I don't know. I don't know what this playoff is going to prove other than if you have two of the biggest teams of all time, Ohio State and Notre Dame, playing in the national championship game. If this game doesn't have good ratings, there's going to be changes next year. And I mean, like, this game should have top of the line ratings because I think the college football, they're going to be very annoyed with ESPN. That
this is what they wanted.
I know they signed that deal with ESPN for no reason. This game should 100% be simulcast on ABC. And if you remember, ESPN, or I'm sure it's NFL, has been pressuring ESPN, where now a lot of their Monday night games are on ABC. They realize that people are getting pissed with the streaming only. And so they're like, all right, well, we're going to try to just get rid of cable. So now the NFL has been pushing that if they're going to do streaming, people have to be able to pay for a streaming package. They shouldn't be locked into cable. And I think it's kind of hurting ESPN. So now their only thing that they have really is what? College football? I think if the ratings are down, where next year they're going to go ahead and say, hey, Tostitos and Mayo, Duke's Mayo, like, you guys going to put in some ads? They're like, well, you know what? Ratings were really down last year. We're not going to pay. I mean, Dr. Pepper can't support the whole thing with their fantasy house or whatever the hell that commercial is. So I'm thinking that there's going to be some major changes. The only thing that's going to save it is if this is one of the most watched ESPN games of all time, and I just don't think it's going to be, because I don't think people care. Because I think people see that this is the new college football. Not every team, not every conference is really represented in the new format. And I think people keep saying about a Big Ten SEC merger. I do not think casual fans want that, if I'm being honest.
Well, no, and I mean, to be honest, I don't want it right now to be the way that it is, where they have the overinflated Big Ten and SEC. Like, I understand that you have these super conferences right now where you have ridiculous number of teams in them, but you don't need to have that many in the top 25. Like, you can't have that many from one conference. That, if we haven't learned anything over the last 5 years, it's one conference doesn't have that many top teams. It just isn't there. Say what you want, but at the most, I'll say 3. Other than that, you're going to get you get the beating each other. That then it's, well, this team beat this one, but then this one lost to that one. So how do you, and it becomes a pick'em of, well, this just means the conference is better because they're equally beating on each other. It's like, it's bullshit.
Well, that's why Joel Klatt put out that feeler this week, and I'm pretty sure that he's plugged it enough that that's probably an idea coming from Fox, where he said that he wants there to be a bigger movement of standardized schedules. And so I think that's going to come. He said that every conference is going to have to play 9 conference games. You get one non-Power 5 opponent, and then you're going to get the 2 Power 5 opponents that might not be able to be scheduled. Like Michigan can't just pick who's crappy, Arkansas or like Kentucky or something like that. You couldn't just do that. Like they would have to go by like the ranking, where it might be a rotation by conference, where the Big Ten and whatever SEC would have a scheduling agreement, and then the Big Ten and the ACC would have one, like they did in basketball, where it would kind of like go down based on strength the previous year. So like Michigan 7-5, they would get matched up against who was 7-5, like Syracuse or something like that. I don't even know what Syracuse end up being, but it'd be something like that, where it wouldn't be, heck, maybe they'd play Miami, I don't know, the following year. But that's kind of what the TV networks want. And if Joel Klatt's saying it and Fox is there, I wouldn't be surprised if the ratings continue, if next year, like watch the national championship game be broadcast on Fox and the ratings go through the roof. Especially if one of the pushes that there's been rumors about, and I don't have any insight on this, but one of the things they're saying is that the bowl games, because they haven't been watched as much this year, they're trying to push up the schedule with like this standardized schedule so that the semifinal games go back on New Year's, which is what I think they need to do. That way, Oregon doesn't get ripped off with having a huge rest, like a month off before they play Ohio State that had a warm-up game against a Tennessee team that couldn't keep up. Like that's not fair to Oregon. And then the only other thing that I've said is to just get away with the buys and give the other conferences an auto bid. That equally makes the playoff A, fair and balanced, and B, it gives it higher credibility. Because to your point, no one wants to just watch the Big Ten and SEC schools fill up. If you go to like a 16 or 24 team tournament, if 80% of the teams are from the Big Ten and the SEC, what's the point of the regular season? I think they did a straw poll, and this is my last thing. They did a straw poll, and they said the idea, the games that I brought up, that Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois, in the past, that was a disqualifier. They never should have had a home game. But with the system, you really can't force them out, right? And of course, Fox is pushing for every team to be in a conference to help with scheduling, which would force Notre Dame to make a move. But I think like if they expanded it, you could just say all conference champs get the home game. And every at-large would have to go on the road that opening round. I think to me that would be the fairest move. Why would Ohio State get rewarded with a home game? Right? They should have to go to, I don't know, who won another conference, like Arizona State or something. Let them play there at home. Reward them and see what happens. And then the last point was, what the hell was I even talking about? I had one more point, but now I don't remember what it was. So something like that, where they need to either move the games back, add more games so there's not a layoff for the top teams, because no one wants to see a top team get boat raced. And to be fair, the NFL playoff games weren't close either. We had, one close game? The rest were blowouts. Yeah. So you can't say that, college football playoffs were blowouts. No. These were all blowouts.
And that was part of my argument with it too, is that the NFL, I feel like, consistently rates higher when it comes playoff time. I feel like nothing touches the NFL playoffs, and they're able to float have they're projecting to be their winners, play those like highlight games, and can't figure out how to avoid those big blowouts.
Well, see, here's the thing too. With college football, traditionally, even though it wasn't really like every team had a chance, but every team kind of had a chance to go undefeated, right? And be in consideration for a mythical championship like UCF claimed or whatever, right? It's in the rule book. No one could take it away. That's a national championship for them, whether they were in the playoffs or not. Now, the way you're looking at it, if you only go Big Ten and SEC, you're leaving out not only entire states, but the alignment is so weird right now that like a state as big as Florida has one team. So if Florida's not in it, the Gators, that entire state is probably checked out, right? They're not just going to magically become a Notre Dame or an Ohio State fan. The same argument that I've made like before from like North Carolina. If no one from North Carolina, if no conference, like there's no team from North Carolina in either of those conferences, if they don't get picked up in this merger, you think people in North Carolina are just going to start cheering for like South Carolina or Clemson? It's not going to happen. Or Clemson's not even in it either. You think all the Clemson fans are going to start cheering for South Carolina? No way. They're just not going to watch college football anymore. And so you have to add more teams, or you just do what I said. Expand it so it's conference champs, and conference champs get the home game. So Clemson won the conference. They should have got a home game against Texas. Why should Texas get it? Right? What did they do? They lost to Georgia twice. Then we might have had Clemson win, and who knows, we would have had some better games. But my last point is like, in the past, Florida wouldn't be checked out. If you bring back the auto conference champs, then maybe like a team from like South Florida winning a smaller conference, maybe they can pull off the upset against Oregon or something to get people invested. Where right now, the beauty of the college basketball tournament is there are Cinderellas. In this format, Boise State was a Cinderella. Not really. And that was the only Cinderella in the whole thing. Now you're basically just giving these NIL monsters a second chance when, money's now spread around more, where it's not just going to be Alabama and Georgia every year. Now we're going to have like Michigan and Ohio State, Notre Dame mixed in, which it was always Ohio State anyway. So now instead of it just being Ohio State, now you're going to have Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame mixed in, which is nice, right? And the South, you'll have Texas and A&M and maybe like some other ones mixed in with Alabama. But people want to see different teams, and they don't want to see them get screwed out of their chance. Just like in the NFL, was it fair for the Rams to get a home game? No. The Vikings had a way better record, right? But they won the division. College football needs some type of standardization where the conference champs should get the home games, and that's it. Whatever they decide, whether it's, hey, there's only going to be 8 conferences, and it's a 16-team playoff where it's all 8 conference champs get the home games, and then you do like the slot. So like the lowest rated one might get like the highest rated team or whatever, and then Oregon will play like whatever the lowest at large. Like I think that would make it closer. I don't know. But to me, that would be the only fair thing. And to make it more interesting. But are people going to want to play in these small-ass conference stadiums? Maybe not. Maybe make the top 4 get home games and then 4 at-large regional sites. College basketball is in regional sites, right?
Yeah.
And then that way, the 4 smaller conferences, they don't really get a home game, but they can't really support. Like, let's say Marshall won. Could they support, like, Penn State going into Marshall Stadium? Nah, probably not, right? It would be insane. But maybe they have an East Coast thing where they play at the Washington Stadium or something. boom, settled. Then it's not a home Penn State game for no reason, just for money. But that's my last thing. Anything else you want to talk about today?
No, just excited. We still have football to play to enjoy.
I know it's closing in. That's why next week we'll be talking about Ohio State winning the national championship and what teams Mahomes playing in that championship game for the AFC. Maybe the Lions blowing it. We'll see. But yeah, if there's anything else you want us to talk about, let us know. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.